Okay, so we're going to start by going to Jamboree. This is going to be a series of videos. Jamboree.armorcareer.com will take you to the GitHub page. And I'm going to do kind of a series of these and go through each option of Jamboree. We're going to go to that PowerShell script, right click, click Save As, and I've already saved it in this Jambo folder and actually made some changes here. So we're going to go ahead and close all of this out, restart it. Now, the way this works is it temporarily resets all your environment variables for Windows. So it's protected. Anything you run after inside of Jamboree will be jailed into more or less this folder. There's a few exceptions with like the IDE, at least PyCharm, and possibly the Arduino stuff. Stuff gets thrown in your actual user folder. But I try to keep everything jailed to this specific folder path so you can easily back stuff up. So the first thing we're going to do is start. Now you have Hexium installed, and if you haven't installed Hexium for the hardware acceleration, there's like 2 to 3 other ways to do it, and I haven't covered any of those yet because this works for me. But they're getting rid of the Hexium support, but it works for this, and I'm also Windows 11, and it works fine for Windows 11. So once you have Hexium installed, I don't think you need to reboot, but you can go ahead and reboot. And once you're done with that, we're going to skip uh, running Burp Suite and go ahead and start AVD. Now what it's doing is it's already got the environment set up. It's pulling down the command line tools for basically Android Studio. So if you've ever set up Android Studio, it's a pain, and you'll sometimes download the wrong thing, or you'll pull down the wrong image, and you'll have to re-download it, and you end up downloading a bunch of stuff that you don't need. This is like a minimalist approach, and you get basically most of the stuff in the Android Studio apart, from the emulation side, apart from a few features that you might want as far as like emulating cameras and doing special things with cameras and whatever, but that's not really my use case. Usually I'm trying to run an application and look into it. So what takes the longest is downloading these images. It's x86, that's the API version is 3.0, and I think the R09 is like the sub version of the API version. That's what takes the longest. So what we have here is we have Java set up. We've got our AVD, so we can use this with a regular phone now. You have your Java in here. You've got the download to the emulator tools. Here's the emulator itself. You have also, what will show up in here in a few seconds is the Android image with all the information. So it's pulling down the original images, which are sitting in here. I think, yeah, your original image is sitting here. And then once it boots up, which that's what this is, we'll get everything dumped to the ABD folder. So here's our setup. Here's the ini file, and we should see stuff for keyboard in here. Hardware keyboard, yes. Now, when this file gets created, it's in a certain format, and I don't want to necessarily create that file when it doesn't exist yet. So you basically have to restart the emulator to get the keyboard to work. So how we have it now, this is basically your vanilla Android setup. So since the keyboard doesn't work, you can copy and paste. So like copying and pasting works. But we're going to go ahead and click the AVD shutdown. And it's basically sending the ADB command to shut down this image. Then we're going to start it back up here in a second. So I've started Jamboree back up. Now we're going to restart it. And now that keyboard emulation will be in there. And you can also run this ADB logcat. So if you're having issues with a particular device or there's some kind of problem, you can come in here and run the AVD logcat. We got an error because it's actually not running yet. And you do have to let this marinate for a while. once you initially power the image on, it's connected to the internet, and it's gonna want to do all kinds of stuff. Google Play wants to update. All these other things want to do their updates and sync to the store. This is even before downloading. So it's doing a bunch of stuff in the background. So what I'll show you is basically kind of the default setup here. So now that we've restarted, see, we can type in here and get everything going. So like here's the browser working, all that good stuff. So your second step here is to, install whatever you want to install, run the Play Store. Again, it's probably doing a bunch of stuff right now, doing updates. So you kind of want to walk away for maybe 10, 5, 20 minutes, let it do everything it's trying to do. Because if you try to do stuff while it's running, it will kind of, Google Play doesn't really want to start until it's done updating everything it wants to update. Now this ad being blocked, double click, that's all my internal DNS blocks for Pi-hole basically. So my own internal blocking is blocking some of those callbacks. So what I'll do is I'll log in, see if I can log in with my other Google account here in a second. So you'll see I've got it set up here. I do this should be in the clipboard still. But yeah, once you log in, it starts to do all kinds of stuff. So basically, right now it's like updating in the background. Sushi Roll is a game I like to do test on because it's 3D and it uses that hardware acceleration. So you can test your hardware acceleration, you can test the Play Store, you can test some of the inspection stuff that you can do. So here's our ADB logcat window that shows us warnings and errors and things like that. Now there's a bunch, just like any Linux system, there's a bunch of errors that pop up in here. So it's pretty normal to see all kinds of errors when you're looking at debug logs, especially in Android. So from here, we're pretty much set. We've got everything we need. Turn the volume up in here. Should be able to hear some of this. And, this isn't going to work for your AAA games. Anything that's like the freemium game, or it's something that a lot of people play, it's probably not going to work. But this is a pretty generic game that you can play with. And that's pretty much it. I think for now that's kind of just getting you set up, getting you going. Actually, it seems like frozen right now. It's trying to talk to something and just probably trying to download. Probably trying to talk to some ad server that doesn't exist. Because I'm blocking all that stuff internally. So it's trying to reach out to some kind of web server somewhere, and it's not. It doesn't exist. Bad service name or flag, Google, Android, AGI, augmented audio field service. Yeah, there's something going on in the background there. Go back here. Excuse me. And open it back up. We'll turn off ADB logcat because it eats a lot of. It's a lot for it to send the logs from the emulators. Sometimes it can kind of crash stuff. See if it saved our progress. And usually, when you first start playing the game, it's gonna lag out a little bit once it gets loaded up in there. And it's pretty quick too, you know. And these just like to watch ads and stuff. So that's pretty much it. You know, you can play little games like this, but if you try and play like a AAA title or some kind of game that's a paid game or a freemium game that's not just a bunch of ads, or it's some bigger title, you're probably not going to be able to do some of this stuff. That's pretty much it. In the next video, we'll cover some additional stuff through the Android Studio or the Android emulator part. We'll try to make it through that. Just basics of installing third-party applications, or looking at what's running and what's not running, and clearing out some of the issues you would have just running standard applications in the emulator itself. We'll add a bunch of apps and play around with that. So look forward to seeing you guys again. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Submit a bug in the GitHub repo. If you have any problems at all and want any feature requests, feel free to reach out and have fun.